Hello everybody, it's Josie here. I'm going to be doing another one of my spooky Halloween themed recommendations videos, and this one is for vampires, and specifically queer vampires. So I am a vampire fiend, to say the least. I love all things vampire. I grew up on a steady diet of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, so I blame Buffy. I watched the TV show when I was young. I loved it. It is still my favourite show. I will admit to loving Twilight, although I was neither Team Edward or Jacob. I was Team Bella all the way. And I just love vampire fiction. Anne Rice, Interview with the Vampire, classic. Just one of my all-time kind of favourite vampire novels. So growing up on kind of vampire fiction, I think in the 90s vampire fiction was a lot more prevalent. There was a lot of teen kind of vampire books and series. I mean, Vampire Diaries, I love the originals, that kind of came later. But all of those books, all of that kind of vampire-centric stuff was very much, I think, more of a 90s trend. I do think, however, they're having a bit of a renaissance. So over here on my shelf, I've got the latest book that has been hailed as restarting the vampire genre. It is The Beautiful by Renee Ahdieh. Now, I'll be honest, I don't think this has queer rep. If it does, that's amazing. And I am actually really only reading queer rep, particularly for this channel. But because I'm such a vampire lover, I've taken a chance. I've bought the book. I'm hoping to have some kind of diversity, although there is diversity in this book, so that really ticks that box. But I'm hoping that there might be a bit of queer rep in there as well, so we'll see. But I'm not really going to include this in my video because I haven't read it yet. But what I'll do is I'll recommend some of my favourite books that are vampiric but also queer. So, I have to start with this book because it is one of my all-time favourite books. This is very much from the early 90s. This is Lost Souls by the magnificent Poppy Z. Brite. Poppy Z. Brite has one of the darkest, most twisted imaginations. This book, when it came out, it was very much compared to kind of Anne Rice, but sort of ramping it up almost for kind of the modern generation. And I think that's really true. So this book focuses on a group of 3 vampires. It's Molokai, Twig, and Zilla. Just remember what the last one was. And they are kind of a group of, they come back to New Orleans at Mardi Gras and they basically wreak havoc. They're very hedonistic. It's all chartreuse and sex, and they are very gay. There's a lot of, this is you know, gay, queer vampire heaven. Lost Souls. There's also another book called Drawing Blood from Poppy Z. Brite. That's sort of in the same vein, but this is my favourite. So you have that story. Then you have a child that's called Nothing. And Nothing is basically born a vampire. And Nothing kind of hooks up with this group and gets into trouble. And then you also have 2 best friends who are in the band Lost Souls. Hence the name of the book. And it's a beautiful kind of story between these 2 guys as well. It's just poetically written. There's wonderful, horrific, bloody scenes. So if you can't stand kind of horror and blood, not the book for you, but if you can, it is just unlike any horror or vampire book that I've read to date. This is my absolute favourite. Yeah, it's incredible. There's a real cult following. The kind of the lead singer of the fictional band in this book, Lost Souls, Ghost, is an incredible character. He has these kind of visions almost. It's just gorgeous. I highly recommend it. Gay, vampires, New Orleans, sort of classic 90s vampire fiction, but just with beautiful writing. Lost Souls by Poppy Z. Brite. Then, kind of moving on a slightly different bent. So I read the first book of this. So this is Origins and Overtures by Mary Borsellino. I keep saying that wrong. So this is actually the first book in a series, and this is kind of a YA, punks and vampires. Again, lots of gay vampires in this series. So I've only read the first book. Gay rep in this, gay vampires, actually quite a lovely story in this. You've kind of, again, it feels like a 90s kind of underground punk rock music, kind of desolate teens, and then throw in some vampires into the mix, kind of shades of Buffy in a way. I really enjoy it. I'm going to get the second book, I just haven't gotten around to it, but I am going to kind of continue in the series because I want to know how it continues. But yeah, gay, vampires, YA, this is your bet. And it's not as bloody as Lost Souls. Then, can't talk about vampires without talking about Slayer by Kirsten White. Now, obviously I am a Buffy fiend. I know there's a lot of mixed opinion on this. Some people do not like this book, really don't like it. Buffy makes an appearance in it in a kind of interesting way. But basically what this does is it continues the Buffy lore. So it picks up where the TV series left off, where kind of the world caved in. And this is sort of the aftermath, and you have a group of Watchers that have been left, and you have twins who are in this kind of Watcher camp. And then you follow the two twins, and you see what happens to them, kind of obviously Slayer, Watcher type of scenario. They're vampires because it's Slayer. But also the female-female romance is between one of the twins and her friend, and it's very sweet. And there's also gay representation, so there's a lovely gay best friend for the Slayer in this book, and he has a very sweet boyfriend. So this is more, again, if you're a Buffy fan, I would recommend it. I really enjoyed it. Like I said, there is split opinions, so see what you think, but I enjoyed it. I loved reading it. As a Buffy fan, I appreciated this, so loved it. Then, we've had a lot of kind of gay vampire representation, and I almost feel like there's been more of that. Even when you read kind of Anne Rice's Vampire Chronicles, Lestat and Louis can very much be read as at very least sort of bisexually fluid. Also the vampire Armand, I would say. So there's a lot of that. But lesbian vampires, that's what I'm really interested in. So I have 3 books to recommend. Okay, I'm going to start with the classic. So this is Camilla by Sheridan Le Fanu. This is the classic, you know, lesbian female vampire story. It is very short. It's definitely worth a read. There have been a lot of adaptations of this. So I think one of the more famous ones kind of in the queer community is the web series Camilla. It is brilliant. If you have not seen it, I highly recommend. Google kind of Camilla web series and watch it. It's hilarious. It's kind of more of a Buffy-ish. The characters are at university, a take on Camilla, but Camilla the vampire is gay. There's loads of queer representation in it, and it's fantastic. There's also a book based on this series. I have not read it yet. Again, I want to read it. I've just seen some really mixed reviews on it. Some people saying it's nowhere near as good as the web series. And then there's kind of adaptations of this as well, where they've taken the Camilla story and kind of adapted it in different ways. And I'm kind of looking to read more of those, and as I do, I'll share them with you. But this is the classic. Then, the book which I love is this one, is The Gilda Stories by Joelle Gomez. This is gorgeous. So this follows a Gilda, who is a vampire, kind of through her life, and she is a lesbian, and the woman she loves, and the people she meets, and kind of through the ages and the centuries, how she lives. She is also a woman of colour, which is really interesting, and again, another new take, I think, on vampires, because I don't see that as much. And for me, this was just beautiful. This is kind of it's like a biography. So you don't have very much, there's not horror, I would say, but from a vampire stance, from a lesbian vampire, and kind of this beautiful lyrical kind of story of her life, and almost a little bit Vampire Chronicles-ish, but with less sort of killing and maiming. This is just beautiful. Highly, highly recommend this. And then the last book I'm going to read is Girls Who Bite. So this is lesbian vampire erotica. Yes, there is such a thing. Thank you, book gods. So if that's what you're looking for, and it is what I'm looking for, these are short stories. They are basically lesbian vampires and their sexy time. So, I mean, what can I say, right? This is good. So that's it for me. Please let me know in the comments if you have any other sort of queer vampire books that you would recommend. Let me know if you've read any of those and what you think. And I will speak to you all again very soon. Bye-bye.